This week, Mel gives a quick recap of what's going on with World of Warships. Jonny Robot gets all animated in Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and we look at 3 of the mobile games I'm playing the most these days. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week Nintendo dropped a bombshell. It's moving into mobile games. The hardware giant has teamed up with mobile game developer DNA to work together on games based on Nintendo IP that will then be playable on smartphones, tablets, and other mobile devices. This doesn't mean that the studio is abandoning traditional platforms, but more that it's broadening its horizons, providing an alternative to Nintendo fans who already play on Wii U or 3DS, as well as providing a new entry point for people who might not otherwise pick up a gaming device. In fact, proving that Nintendo is really not straying too far from its roots, President Satoru Iwata also confirmed it's actually working on a new gaming platform itself. The brand new concept is codenamed NX, and we won't know much more than that until 2016. Another massive update, Hideo Kojima has reportedly had a falling out with publisher Konami, which has seen the developer no longer listed as executive content officer and his name stripped from promotional materials for Metal Gear Solid 5. The current situation looks like Mr. Kojima, who is the creator of the Metal Gear series, will leave Konami when his contract expires in December. Meanwhile, in more delightful news, Star Wars Battlefront is getting ready to make its grand debut next month. It has been 9 months since EA first announced it was working on the game, and we've yet to really see any evidence. However, that is all about to change as part of Star Wars Celebration, kicking off in California from April 16. We don't quite know what will be debuted. Obviously, we're all crossing our fingers for some actual gameplay, but the event will also herald news of the other Star Wars games in development at EA in partnership with Lucasfilm, so even if we only get the barest of teasers, there should still be enough to keep fans happy. Something that's dropping a little sooner than that is the closed beta test for StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void, which will bring a whole stack of changes to the RTS when things get underway on March 31st. Even if you saw the game at BlizzCon last year, things are already very different. There's the usual things you'd expect from an expansion, new units, standard tweaks, new story content, but there are some unusual adjustments in the works too, including doubling the starting worker count and reviewing the number of resources at each base. These changes have the potential to completely change the way StarCraft 2 plays out, particularly when combined with the new units, so it makes sense that Blizzard is taking its time. The beta is officially starting earlier than the company traditionally would to ensure it can get the most detailed and comprehensive feedback on these game-changing tweaks. If you want in on this StarCraft Void action, stay tuned to your inbox. Invites are going out very shortly. 2 games that are already on the market have seen some major changes this month as well. First up, The Elder Scrolls Online is officially subscription optional, meaning that once you've bought the game, it's free to play unless you decide you want some additional delicious tidbits. The optional subscription gives you premium DLC, an allowance of in-game currency, and a 10% bonus to crafting, research, crafting, inspiration gain, gold acquisition, and experience point gain. On the other hand, if you don't want to pay anything, you'll be able to enjoy all of the current content released for the game, including all DLC, updates, and content additions, free of additional charges. It's your call. The second game is Evolve, which is getting 1 new monster, 4 new hunters, 2 new maps, an observer mode, and a partridge in a pear tree. If you already own the monster expansion pack, you will get the game's 4th playable monster, Behemoth, automatically. Otherwise, it'll be available from March 31st. The 4 new hunters, Torvald, Crow, Slim, and Sunny, are all available individually or as part of the Hunting Pass. However, Observer Mode and the 2 new maps, both Broken Hill Foundry and the Broken Hill Mine, will come to all gamers for free, releasing on Xbox One first before landing on PC and PS4 from April 30. Remember, you will be able to play against the new Montag and the Hunters, even if you don't buy the new content. But, of course, you will need to hand over some cash if you want to play as the new additions. In quick news, we have been given our first glimpse of LEGO Jurassic World. And that's all we need to say about that, really. A developer at CD Projekt Red has shared an in-progress screenshot of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and while we have seen plenty of images from this glorious game in the past, this is the first one we've seen in stunning 4K resolution. You too can enjoy this level of visual fidelity if you've got the right gear. You will need a beefy PC setup and a 4K capable monitor, but it'll all be worth it for super high-def Geralt, don't you think? There's apparently a new Pokemon title on the way as well, outed by the Australian Classification Board. We don't know anything about Pokemon Rumble World other than the fact it's been rated PG, but we're guessing that it's some sort of a spin-off or follow-up or update to Pokemon Rumble on Wii, Pokemon Rumble Blast on 3DS, and Pokemon Rumble U on Wii U. More details as they come to hand. And finally this week we got our first look at Adam Sandler's new movie Pixels, where classic 80s arcade characters terrorise the earth, and the gaming community seems quite vocally divided over whether it's actually any good or not.
Pac-Man's a bad guy?
Incoming!
Donkey Kong.
It's just a barrel! How bad can it hurt?
The only way to take down Pac-Man is with ghosts.
You want ghosts? These are your ghosts.
Oh yeah!
Pixels is due in cinemas around the middle of this year, which hopefully gives everybody enough time to work out if the game is, as Cliff Bleszinski pondered, charming or completely stupid. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
World of Warships is the third game in Wargaming's free-to-play World of series, the first two being World of Tanks and World of Warplanes. Warships has been in close beta for nearly 2 weeks now, and we're finally able to talk about our experiences on the Seven Seas. As you start the beta, you unlock 2 ships, one from each of the American and Japanese tech trees. These are both cruisers, the only ship type that currently goes all the way from Tier 1 to Tier 10. They're good fun to play, fitting neatly in between destroyers and battleships when it comes to things like speed, gun size, armour and mobility. After Tier 1, World of Warships gives you a choice: stay with the cruisers or take a stroll down the destroyer line. It doesn't really matter which you choose, you can go back and pick the other option at any time with your progress saved where you left off. Destroyers are the smallest class of ships in the game, which also gives them the highest acceleration, top speeds and mobility. But this all comes at the cost of armour and heavy guns. The destroyers in World of Warships are loaded with torpedoes and the unique ability to lay down smoke screens, which makes it much more difficult for your enemy to spot you or your team, as long as someone doesn't blow your cover by shooting. The key play style of these small ships is to remain hidden and unspotted, until you can close the gap between you and your target to unleash that devastating torpedo attack. You'll need to be patient and wait until the timing, distance and angles are just right to pull off a perfect hit, but the feeling of a successful attack is one of the highlights of the game. The third type of vessel is, of course, the battleship. In the beta, battleships are only available to the Japanese, but the American line will be unlocked soon. They're unlocked from Tier 3 onward, on the cruiser branch, and they're pretty much on the opposite end of the spectrum to destroyers. They're much bigger, much slower to get moving, and pretty awkward to steer. This of course makes them easy targets, but they're also equipped with super thick armour and some really heavy artillery. With big guns comes big ranges, and firing at such extreme distances takes a bit of thinking. Engaging targets that are more than 10 kilometres away means you need to seriously consider how much lead time you need to give your target. It is not just a matter of point and shoot. Finally, World of Warships has a range of aircraft carriers available in the American tech tree only at this stage. Yes, Japan will get there soon, we promise. These are just as big as battleships, but without armour or any offensive guns. Instead, they have a flight deck, which makes them different to any other ship in the water. Playing one of these ships is more like playing an RTS. Your camera shifts to a bird's eye view of the battlefield and you command both your ship and aircraft with some familiar feeling controls. Each carrier can select different flight control modules, meaning you can choose what sort of aircraft you'd like to carry. There's the typical fighter-escort combination, 2 or 3 fighters and 1 torpedo bomber, and others that use 1 fighter squadron and a combination of different bombers. Love it or hate it, and you will feel one or the other, the aircraft carrier adds an interesting change of gameplay style, and it provides something a bit different to break up what might otherwise get a bit dull and samey. And speaking of dull and samey, we should probably address the big issue here. How can wargaming maintain a high level of replayability for a game that's limited to a relatively flat maps? The answer lies in the different ship types, a very strong pool of maps, and an impressive collection of gameplay modes. These range from a traditional base capture style to one where both teams battle it out for one central point, and a very strategic mode that sees teams winning and losing points in the race to 1,000. After the slight misstep of World of Warplanes, it's great to see Wargaming have paid so much attention to making sure it gets this one right. There's an obvious play on words here to say that a game based at sea is full of depth, but really that's the best way to describe World of Warships. It won't be for everyone, but if you like what you see, sign up for the beta and join the Navy.
Main turret critically damaged.
Traditionally on Player Attack, we mostly cover console and PC games, but those aren't the only games we play. It's difficult to carry a home console with you on a bus or to fit a PC in your pocket, and while there are some great games out there for 3DS and Vita, I don't want to take my whole library of cartridges and cards with me everywhere I go. So these days, most of my gaming hours are spent on an iPhone. The problem then is with so many games out there for mobile platforms, both iOS and Android, how can you tell which ones are good? Well, I'm not going to say that these are the best smartphone games on the market, but these are the 3 that I'm playing the most this month. First up, Mujo, which describes itself as an absolutely unique stack puzzle. For the most part, that's an accurate observation. This isn't just another Match 3 mobile game. Sure, there are coloured tiles on a virtual board and you do need to collect them, but instead of having to tap and swipe them into collections, you play them as they lay. Either tap to explode groups of more than 3 tiles, or tap and hold to stack them to use later. There is also another gameplay mechanic at play here, which lends an RPG feel to the puzzler. You have 3 Greek deities on your team, each one with their own special talent or move. Some might help by rearranging tiles, others might open boxes, and some will simply increase the points earned from explosions. Each deity is linked to a particular colour, yellow, blue, or darker blue, and the more tiles you collect, the more each deity will level up. Red tiles, of course, deal damage to your enemies. They start out pretty simple, they will take damage until they die, but your enemies do get harder as you go along. None of them have seemed to attack you, but many have healing abilities, so if you only hurt them a little, they'll regain their health by the time you play your next move. The answer, obviously, is to combine all of your red tiles into stacks and then hit the bad guys with a massive attack in one fell swoop. Mujo is incredibly soothing to play, the colours are muted, the music is charming, and the repetitive gameplay is simple to pick up but difficult to master. It'll cost you around $2 from the App Store, and the hours of entertainment are worth every cent. Next on my list is Deeply Absurd Chain. This is another game from the Match 3 family, but it's different in its own charming, surrealist ways. The mechanic is similar to Threes, where combining tiles of one element results in a new element being produced, and on down a sort of odd evolutionary trail. In Deeply Absurd Chain, you start out with rocks, which you combine to form living rocks, and then a simple life form, a young creature, a grown-up creature, a skeleton, an egg, and then some owls. Things start making even less sense from there. The owls turn into precious gems, and the gems turn into a robot. But nobody was really hoping to find a biology lesson inside an iPhone game. Unlike many games of this genre, you can combine more than 3 tiles to make one new one, so clearing large spaces is easy if that's your strategy, but remember that the longest chain might not be the best. Also, when you're linking tiles together, you are able to make diagonal moves, which maximises your opportunities. Deeply Absurd Chain is free for iOS and is ad supported. If you don't like ads, you can pay around $1 and have them removed. Simple, and that is the only in-app purchase of the game. And finally, for this tiny roundup, we have the latest game that's grabbed me, Dotello. I've only been playing this one for about a week, so I'm not sure how much longevity it'll have, but for now it's addictive and frustrating enough to keep me busy. Like the others, this is a matching puzzle game, and like the others, it's adding its own tweaks to a well-loved formula. Rather than being restricted to swapping tiles with your neighbours, you can lift and drop dots from one spot to anywhere else on the board. If the spot is empty, your dot has a new home. If it's occupied, your dot has a new home and the former inhabitant is swapped back to your dot's original position. Your goal, essentially, is to make horizontal, vertical or diagonal lines of 3 or more matching colours as you work towards meeting objectives within a certain number of moves. Extra trickiness, frustration and strategy are introduced with immovable pins, applied to dots and blank spaces alike, as well as wildcard dots and other special pieces. Dotello is a lot of fun. It's just frustrating enough to keep me coming back. It looks gorgeous and it sounds lovely, but it has some pretty glaring issues. The game's energy system restricts you to 5 lives before making your way for regeneration. More lives are unlockable if you're happy with the game connecting to Facebook and spamming your friends. Special pieces like pin cutters are available as single-use in-app purchases, and ads pop up with awkward timing, seeming to capitalise on accidental taps rather than any intentional decision. I don't mind paying for mobile games. I'm happy to support developers and creators, but I don't like being taken advantage of. If Dotello had a price point that would let me remove the ads, or let me pay for pieces with in-game coins, I would happily pay. But for now, we'll see if the nagging gets too much. If it does, there is a whole app store full of games for me to look at.
Dragon Ball Z. I can't think of an anime, hell anything, responsible for unleashing on the world so many wonderful gifts. Memes, seizures, cool things to yell as you poop, it gave us everything, especially games. Dragon Ball Xenoverse is the 80th game to come out of this franchise. 80th! And there's only 291 episodes, which begs the question, what can they possibly do that's new? Turns out, not an awful lot. To its credit, Xenoverse does try to mix things up this time around. Instead of just replaying the epic battles from when the Saiyans invaded, or when that purple bastard Frieza rocked up and wrecked everybody's shit, Xenoverse pulls a 90s comic book favourite, the what if scenario. Turns out someone's been altering the DBZ timeline and it's up to you, a wicked powerful warrior summoned by Shenron, to help Trunks and the Time Police sort it all out. The story isn't strong by any means, but the spin on iconic events like Raditz throwing Goku into Piccolo's special beam cannon, or Vegeta joining the Ginyu Force freshens things up enough for it to feel new. The biggest draw though, hands down, is your previously mentioned wicked powerful warrior. They are custom. You are giving a surprise amount of options to choose from, like race, which previously includes Saiyan, but also Margin and whatever the hell Frieza is, and a truckload of tweaks that you could use. I ended up making a 10-foot tall, killer whale-coloured, red-eyed Namekian called Crab Cakes, and Crab Cakes cared for only 2 things, kicking ass and striking questionable poses. The core of the game is split between 2 different modes. The story, where you time travel and get bossed around by Trunks, and Parallel Quest mode. Parallel Quest is kinda like training for your character, as completing the objectives nets you experience, money, and loot. That's right, there's an awkward smell of MMO around here, but we'll get to that later. I actually found this mode to be the most fun out of everything the game had to offer. The missions are essentially fan fiction dreams. There I was 1 minute, teaming up with Raditz to beat down Gohan, then I was fighting off every single Saiyan, and then Krillin actually became capable and could land actual painful punches. You can choose to bring 2 additional AI fighters in with you as well. I normally chose my 2 favourite bros Yamcha and Tien, and depending on who else was there, they'd interact and even smack talk each other. Mainly directed at Yamcha, until I broke their goddamn jaws. These missions can feel kinda like grinding after a while, with certain items and moves being random drops only available in this mode. So you know, Destiny players will feel right at home. These drops can range from new special moves to cosmetic items that boost stats, which is where this game takes a turn into RPG territory. You gain XP for all your fights, which you can then use to boost your abilities. This becomes mandatory if you want to beat the story mode, as even the first showdown with Nappa will leave your character, well, you saw what he did to Yamcha. When it comes to throwing down, Xenoverse doesn't really have what you'd call a deep fighting system. It basically revolves around light attacks, strong attacks, blocks, grabs, and special moves, which can be strung together to create combos. Button mashing is totally a viable tactic here, but if you take the time to master its mechanics, say 20 minutes, you can pull off some pretty rad combos that feel unique to you. regardless of the shallowness, it still remains pretty fun and awesome to watch. What really bogs Xenoverse down in a big way is its forceful integration of MMO-style hub world, poor interface issues, and unreliable servers. To do anything in this game, you have to navigate the hub world, which is painful for two major reasons: the leisurely jog at which your character moves, and the goddamn music. Doing anything quickly in this game is not an option. Do you want to do a one-on-one game with your buddy on the couch? Well, you gotta boot up the game, select your character, wait for the server to load you in if it feels like it, jog to the versus area, and then you can do that. Why not just have a simple menu? The other major annoyance is this game expecting you to have an encyclopedic knowledge of DBZ at all times. For example, this item increases all Piccolo-based moves. Okay then, what counts as a Piccolo-based move? Looks like I'm heading to Wikipedia. When it comes down to it, Dragon Ball Xenoverse is by no means this generation's Tenkaichi or Budokai. Don't get me wrong though, it's really fun and it feels like you're playing the show, complete with your own custom character, but I don't know how long it will really last with its simple fighting system, grinding, and iffy online mechanics. If you love Dragon Ball, who am I kidding? You already bought this day one. For those that didn't though, you should probably hang off, keep wishing on those Dragon Balls, and wait for the inevitable sequel.
And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, we're headed to a couple of very different locations. The mean streets of Battlefield Hardline as Jonny takes a look at the latest addition to the EA series, and Jackson disappears into the glorious world of Final Fantasy Type 0, also known as the game that comes with the demo build of Final Fantasy 15. In the meantime, you can catch us on playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.